So thank you for coming to the last presentation, the graveyard presentation. It's the worst place to be for a presenter, but I'll try and finish the whole conference off on a slightly more humorous note. I would like to say this is going to be something completely different to the previous presentation. So today I'm going to answer the question that's obviously been bothering a lot of you for a long time. Is testing like electricity? And the answer is, obviously, no, it's not. So now if we can look on Slido and see if there's any questions, and we're finished for today. Okay, so I'm a test manager, which means I like a challenge. I wouldn't be a test manager if I didn't like a challenge. So I'm going to try and fulfill this challenge to find some similarities, some parallels between testing and electricity. So if we think about how we use electricity, hopefully you'll all start thinking immediately about the light bulb. Yeah? Do you know why the light bulb was invented? Quickly, there's some prizes later on, so if we get through the presentation quicker, we quickly get to the prizes. What happens when you walk into a dark room? What's the risk when you walk into a dark room? The risk is that you'll fall over something in the dark. So the inventor of electricity, and you can say whether it's Edison or Mr. Swan, unfortunately his picture's disappeared on this version of PowerPoint. I'm British, I think Edison is a liar. Obviously Swan invented the light bulb. They wanted to invent a safe, reliable, stable supply of light to mitigate the risk of falling over something in the dark. And it made them a lot of money. They both became extremely wealthy. Now, electricity had previously been invented, fortunately, because light bulbs don't work without electricity, but it only previously been used in the laboratory by mad scientists who wanted to create scary monsters. So with the invention of the light bulb, it created a need to be able to generate, distribute, and implement the ability to generate large quantities of electricity. And this was the birth of the electricity industry. If you read the history, it's actually quite interesting. So can I draw a parallel between the birth of the electricity industry and the birth of the testing industry? Of course I can. I wouldn't be here today if I couldn't. So the testing industry was born somewhere around the 1950s. It's not exactly clear. Computers already existed, but they were used by mad scientists who like to do things with long pieces of paper. Okay. These are jokes. You can laugh if you wish. And somewhere in the 1950s, the computer industry realized that there was a lot of money to be made by selling computer systems to large corporations, to the military, and to the space program. But they very soon ran into a problem because these customers wouldn't sign the acceptance protocol and wouldn't pay the invoices unless they had some sort of proof that the system they were buying met their requirements. And in those early days of the computer industry, the requirements were quite mundane. Get a man on the moon was a user requirement, for example. And the risk of not fulfilling that requirement was lost in space. So before 0 hour and the launch into production, and it really was a launch into production, they had to find a software tester who had to try and work out if the system was actually going to fulfill the requirements. So the birth of the electricity industry and the birth of the testing industry are very similar. They were both created to mitigate risk. So that's one. Okay? So I'm going to try 3 more. So let's look at 3 characteristics of electricity. Electricity is dangerous, the demand for electricity is unpredictable, and electricity is expensive. So electricity is dangerous. I hope that's obvious to everybody in this room. In my world, most of my testing is done for major financial companies. There we're actually talking about the danger to the company's profits or to its reputation. I work for a lot of banks. If the systems go down, the bank stops working. It can't service its customers. It's immediately in the press, damage to reputation. And also, in this day and age, software is becoming a part of our daily lives. Let's imagine a situation where Facebook breaks down. How are we going to talk to each other? There's just no other alternative these days, no? So, with these failures, where does it go wrong? It's a failure in the requirements. It's an error made in the requirements. It's an error made in the design. It's an error made in the coding. It can be an error made in the time given time, scope, and budget of the project or the sprint. So if you think that the dangerous people in our projects or in our sprints are the business analysts, programmers, or project managers, and you think testers are just friendly, harmless little pink penguins, then think again. Because testing is an integral and indispensable part of the software developing process. We even draw these sort of diagrams to prove to everybody that that's the case. Yeah? Don't forget about us. We're important too. Even in Agile, we talk about the three amigos. In the Agile manifesto, there was no tester. We pushed him in there. Hey, three amigos, here he is. So people might not like us, but they rely on us to do our job because our job is to mitigate risk. Software is implemented by human beings who make mistakes just like we do. Yeah? They make mistakes in requirements gathering, in designing, in coding. They might actually misscope a project or give it too much time or too little money. And our job is to be there to help mitigate those risks. And if you were at Tomek's presentation yesterday, maybe we should be helping them do their job better too. So when things go wrong, do we ever think about, could we have found some more bugs? Could we have found the most relevant and critical bugs? Could we have found those bugs faster and with less effort? Could we make sure those bugs were fixed properly and make sure that nothing else gets broken? We really have to take great responsibility for what we're doing. And to do that, we need to work on our skills and our knowledge and our professionalism. And what I hear now in the HUSTEF, you're doing this. This is great, yeah? But in my world, in the financial sector, you'd actually be shocked by how badly testing gets done sometimes. Okay, demand for electricity is unpredictable. This is going to bend your minds a little bit. You'll need to concentrate. So, when you plug in your phone to charge it, it's actually a modern technological miracle. I don't have time to explain the technical details, which is great because I don't understand them. But the grid, the bit in the middle that distributes the electricity to our homes, offices, and factories, has to be balanced at all times. So that means, because there's no cost-effective way of storing electricity, so that means when you plug in your phone to charge it, the power station has to immediately start generating the electricity to charge your phone. Your phone is connected to a nuclear power station sometimes. And vice versa, they can't actually put any electricity in unless somebody takes it out. When the grid gets out of balance, then it breaks down and you get blackouts. And I don't know how often here in Hungary you get blackouts, but mostly in Central and Western Europe, blackouts are very rare. So it's obvious that the electricity companies are doing a very, very good job of balancing the system. And the problem with balancing the system is the way that we use electricity is extremely unpredictable. Here is a chart that shows the usage, or the generation and usage, of electricity in the Czech Republic on one day. You can see there's a huge difference during the day. And that graph would look different on each and every day, depending on if it's sunny, if it's a work day, it's a holiday, if it's raining, it's winter, it's summer. And the other problem with balancing the grid is that the actual sources of electricity are hard to control. Nuclear power stations cannot be switched off. They generate full stop. Coal-powered power stations take several hours to warm up. So if you get a peak in increasing demand, it can actually take you several hours to get a power station up and running to provide it. And the modern sources of green power, solar and wind, are controlled by the weather. So effectively, they're uncontrollable. You have no idea if you're going to get generation or not. Well, you can predict, but it's never sure. So what they do is they plan. They meticulously and plan in great detail, and they keep revising those plans. In the long term, they'll look at the seasons, they'll look at the type of customers, and they'll predict what sort of usage there will be. And as it gets closer and closer to the day of generation, they'll actually get more and more reliable information. The major consumers of power will give detailed plans of their consumption for a day. They'll look at the maintenance work, that's that guy here, maintenance work on the generating and distribution capacity. They'll look at the weather forecast, which will control, if it's raining, people use more power. If it's raining, you'll get less solar power. So it controls both the consumption and the generation. But even with all this planning, there are still unpredictable events. Now, I've got your attention because this is football and beer on one slide. So in the Czech Republic, it was hockey in one beer, so here it's football. The results of a football match are based on the efforts of 11 men chasing an inflatable ball round a large field, in my opinion. I don't like football. And if they win, it could be national euphoria. You've celebrated it this year, I'm sure, with an all-night party and drinking lots of cold beer, which is cooled by electricity. If your team lose, okay, we leave the pub early night, no cold beer. So how do the electricity industry handle that? Well, they handle it by having overcapacity to make sure that there's no riots when the beer gets warm. For planning testing, the requirement for testing is also unpredictable. Each project, release, sprint, whatever model you're in, is different. You have to consider the test scope, you have to consider the test types, you have to consider the quality of the test basis, the requirements, the specifications. You have to look at the test environments, the test data. You have to look at your test team, what skills and knowledge they have. And the further in front you do it, the more your test plan for resources and time is based on predictions. And most of the time, it's actually based on wishful thinking. You'll ask the project manager about this and that, and he'll say, oh, it's like this. It's wishful thinking in most cases. As you get closer and closer to the deadline, your test analysts get hold of the requirements, get all the specifications, you start getting more and more reliable information about what the project's about, what problems it's got. How many test managers regularly review their test plans to revise the estimates? I'm keeping my hand down because I don't do it. If you do it, how many times do you just get a shocked reaction from the test manager? Hey, why suddenly do you need more time and money? Why do you need more people? Yeah? So it's difficult. The theory says you should say there's a margin of error. I never found a project manager that accepted a margin of error in my test estimates. I gave an estimate, that was the law for the next year or two. So even if they do accept the change, then you're going to have a problem adding new capacity. Testers run on carbon-based fuels. They run on coffee and chocolate. Yeah? So they're very slow to get warmed up. You bring a new tester on the project, it takes you a week, 2 weeks, 1 month to get that tester onboarded. So you've still got a problem. And again, there's always the unpredictable. No planning is perfect. The unexpected happens. How do you handle it? The electricity industry invests into capacity, very expensive, very sophisticated capacity that they can switch on and off very quickly. When your football team wins, this guy is generating the electricity because he can be switched on pretty quickly. Yeah? This guy is very expensive. How many test teams have extra capacity to make them more flexible? Usually you don't have enough people. You're not given enough people. So bad planning leads to imbalance, and then it comes to a breakdown. The testers are normally asked to absorb the differences. And when that happens, the lights flicker, they go out, and in the worst case, you can have a testing crisis. So, on a national scale, electricity generation is strategic, lots of investment, lots of planning, overcapacity, people are willing to pay the money for it. On an organizational level, is testing strategic? Is there that level of investment? Is that willingness to have overcapacity? So, last one. So, soon the prizes. Electricity is expensive. Is testing expensive? Yeah? Electricity is expensive largely because the raw materials are expensive. Are the raw materials for testing expensive? Are you the best paid people in your organization? This is my testing team going home in the evening. No. Okay. So, another reason why testing is expensive is because of the infrastructure, building the capacity. Yeah? How many testing teams get the testing tools they want, get the test environments they want, get the test data they want, get the training they want to increase their capacity? It's usually very difficult to argue to get money for that. Another reason why things are expensive is inefficiency. But the electricity industry, through competition, has improved its efficiency. Each generator is independent, and they have to work very hard on providing electricity as cheaply as possible. So they've increased efficiency. And another way we control the cost of electricity is to use it intelligently. We switch off the lights if we're not using them. We try and use energy-efficient appliances like energy-saving bulbs, fridges, and so forth. In testing, we've actually focused on trying to reduce the cost of the raw materials. We've actually gone offshore. Or we use unskilled resources. And they have hidden costs. And they also have the problem that they're usually not efficient and can easily break down. So my view is that we should try and reduce the cost of testing by increasing efficiency, using it more intelligently, and at the same time increase our ability to provide stable, reliable testing. And the tools we have already exist. You've heard about them on this conference. You'll hear about them on any other testing conference you go to. Using other light sources. Yeah? Why have the lights on when you can use daylight? Why don't we use reviews? You'd be surprised by how many organizations don't use reviews, how many project managers refuse to have reviews in the project. Intelligent use. Should we keep the lights on in the basement? Should we switch the lights where we go? We don't go there very often. Should we keep the lights off in the kitchen, where we're chopping vegetables with a sharp knife? Where's the risk? It's in the kitchen. Keep the lights on. We don't go in the basement. We don't need the lights on. So let's use risk-based testing. Let's look at where the risks are, where the impacts are, and spend time testing those things which have the biggest impact. We don't have time to test everything, though we try sometimes. We just don't have time. And efficiency, improving efficiency, means using skilled, trained testers. These are the guys that can use techniques to write effective test cases. They can run them quickly, competently, and write excellent defects, and the coder knows how to fix the defects. Those guys are usually more expensive. But with an energy-saving light bulb, we consider that a return on investment. Why don't we consider a skilled tester also as return on investment? So, last slide. Is testing like electricity? Now, it's my turn to ask you. So, do we take responsibility to mitigate risks? Are we dangerous? Do we provide a stable and reliable supply of testing? Are we expensive or a good return on investment?